Are the 76ers playing a dangerous game with their MVP, Joel Embiid? Daryl Morey, who's, of course, the GM, at a press conference yesterday talking about the Doc Rivers firing. Listen to this.
They had a strong relationship. I mean, I have to make tough calls all the time with trades. Joel was disappointed in, some of it was he didn't know the player we were getting in the trade who ended up helping us, but he was disappointed in the players that went out. I think it's natural to be very close with the people in the locker room. He was very close with Coach Rivers. Yeah, he was shocked about the change, and it's my job to help convince him that the new coach is someone that he'll have a great relationship with as well.
Thoughts about that, Jay? I mean, I think that's a reasonable thing to say. You get close to the people you work with, and that as the executive, he has to, understand that, but also understand you're probably going to get close to the next people you work with.
I try to put myself in the position that if I were a franchise player, if I were the best player on a team, and a new general manager came in, how the hell could I not be consulted or spoken to about what the process is like? So regardless if we ended at the conclusion that you wanted us to end to as the GM wants, there would still have to be some kind of process key that you would have to take me through in order to help me understand the reason behind your thinking on why this was going to occur. Now, I believe that Joel could be shocked. But you have to consult in an era in which players just get up and go different places, and you're worried about stability as it relates to how long your player wants to be there in the franchise that has been the process for a long time. Understanding the history of this franchise, he had to be consulted throughout this process. There's no way you could just be like, well, I'm firing Doc Rivers and that's it.
Key, before you respond to that, I want you to listen, since you brought it up, Jay, to what Daryl Morey said about how they're approaching the head coaching search and whether or not players will have input. Listen to this, Key.
We're taking a careful process with the coach. We do not think it will move quickly. We're going to look at all the candidates. We're already very encouraged by the candidates that reached out. We have an MVP player. We have a great roster. Lots of players want to play with. Lots of coaches want to be with. So we'll look at that carefully. The players won't have a direct input in the coach. You want to look for a coach that is a fit with how we want to play and the players we have. But players won't have an input in that.
What do you think about that, Key? No input from the players.
Look, he's talking the way I look at it. Because if you don't allow Embiid in particular, and if you're trying to sign James Harden back, I don't know if they are or what that story's going to wind up being, Jay. If you're trying to do that and you're not involving them, chances are you're going to lose them mentally. Like, you're going to lose them. And that's not something that in basketball and the NBA in particular, elite that you played in, Jay, and know very well, that doesn't happen. All-star players have input in a coach being hired and fired. All-star players. I don't know not one that does not. You may know one, Jay, but I don't.
I don't know one, Key.
I don't
know one.
Not star, not MVP.
Not a superstar, not Joel Embiid. Now, whether his voice is actually heard and it resonates with Daryl Morey, all right, that's another conversation, but it needs to be heard. That conversation needs to exist. I don't think there's a world where you say, hey, we're bringing in Monty Williams, deal with it, Joel Embiid. Because if that's the case, then, Key, you're going to deal with stuff percolating around whether Joel Embiid wants to be there long term or not. Because now you're not consulting or even helping a young player think through, hey, here are the styles and strategies that we think you could be most successful with, and here's how that coach helps you do that.
Absolutely.
You think he's covering for Embiid to just keep him out of it publicly, like with the press?
Potentially.
Because what else could it be, Key, right? Like, realistically, what else could it be?
It may not be just covering for him. That's the way he's going to answer because he has a job, right? Maybe he wants to, what's the word that I'm looking for? Oh, God, I was looking for a word, but authority. Maybe he wants to continue to have his authority in place to the point where people are not questioning on whether or not he was the guy who made the hire. So that could be more so than protected Embiid. It could be I'm protecting who I am, reserving my power so that people are looking at me and saying, okay, in the end, he still has the power. He hasn't relinquished that power to the players yet. But again, in any sport, the star player or the star players, they usually have input, man.
You would think. Of course they're going to have influence. Of course you're going to want to know their opinion when they're in their primes and everything. You have all that money invested in them. So what is it about superstar players? You've seen KD do this, LeBron do this, where they want to insist publicly that they're not GMing at all, that they're not calling the shots.
Well, this one feels different. I think that's a different question you're asking, Max, as it relates to this particular situation. There's a history with Daryl Morey and James Harden. They've been married before, right? So it's like, oh, I'm going to take some time away, and then the other spouse like, I want to come back. So I mean, you watch Daryl Morey say, okay, I was in Houston, it didn't work out with Tim Fertitta. Fine, I'm going my own direction. Hey, I'm here in Philly. You're seeing James. All right, I want to be out of Houston and found a way to get traded to the Brooklyn Nets. Hey, KD, Kyrie, give it a shot. But inevitably, hey, this seems too chaotic. I want to go there with Daryl Morey again. So that relationship speaks for itself. There ain't no way in hell I don't think Daryl Morey and James Harden are not on the same page about what's happening.
Always.
Mm-hmm. They've always been on the same page.
It's familiarity. It's Bill Parcells trade me to the Bucks. I'm going to go coach the Bucks the next year. Hold on. I'll wait. I'll take the Dallas job. Oh, Keyshawn. I'm going to go get Keyshawn from Bucks to Dallas. And then Dallas is going – I'm going to hang – they're going to do what? While I'm on vacation and getting rid of Key? Okay, cool. I don't know what I'm going to do now. I'm going to just hang out in Florida for a month and then make my decision as a coach. You know, it's the relationships. That's just
no doubt.
That's how they are.
And all that stuff real quick about James Harden going back to Houston. Like, I just don't see it. At this stage of your career, that to me is sheer leverage. Or the thought of, hey, I can go play with Kevin Durant and Devin Booker, and you look at their cap space and what James Jones and them have going on in there in Phoenix. I'm like, well, you're not going to get your money there either. So all these things are being floated out so he can get his deal in Philly with the place that with the GM he really wants to be with, and with the other star player that, by the way, they're pick and roll, they're elite together.
Going back to what Key said, going back to what you said, Key, about you and Parcells, come on, what are the odds that an actual conversation took place where Harden and Morey were both like, come on, man, we're out of here. We'll meet up in, I don't know about, I'll see you in Philly in a couple of years. Or like, yeah, we'll see what's out there. And then as soon as he gets to Philly, of course, Harden's in next, right?
It's more about our paths across at some point again.
Yeah, right. 5 jobs. You're going to rank the ones you would be most interested in were you a head coach.
So just for clarification, I am the head coaching candidate. Mm-hmm. So I am listing what jobs I would want.
Mm-hmm.
Yay, I like this.
All right. So let's go with number 5.
Number 5.
I really do like what Detroit is doing. I like some of their talent that they have, Kate Cunningham and company. I think Troy Weaver is a solid GM who's been building this franchise over time. But rebuilding that is a long rebuilding process. For me, frankly, even though a lot of people would say, hey, look, this probably gives you the most grace as a first-time head coach.
Most runway before you have to start winning.
Before you have to win, and that's one way to look at it. Would it be the best situation because I'm trying to win a championship right away? For me, no. So I would have that as number 5. Mm-hmm. Next up, number 4.
Number 4.
The Toronto Raptors, man. Look, a lot of decisions that they have to make with players in cap space, what you have with Fred VanVleet, what you have with other critical players. Pascal Siakam, I think, is one of the top talents we have in this league. Ultimately, I would love to work with a guy like Masai Ujiri. If he could stay around, I think he is absolutely brilliant, one of the brightest minds that we have in the game of basketball. I think, once again, a situation that gives you a lot of runway because depending upon what happens this summer, this franchise, if it's a fire sale, could be a longer runway as well. But I don't know if it gives you the best chance to win right away.
Longer runway and top executive.
Agreed.
Yeah.
So number 4. Number 3.
Number 3.
I got to go with Philly. I don't know which direction Philly is moving. I have a good sense of it, but I'm coming into the situation with personality traits that I really have to do a good job of managing, and also managing the relationship with the general manager and with the players, right? So now think about that dynamic. I have a marriage that's existed for a long time in Daryl Morey and James Harden. How do I walk that balance beam, okay? Can I really coach James Harden the way I want to coach him? And do I have that authority with Daryl Morey? Because if I coach him in a way he doesn't like, I know that he can supersede me and go to Daryl Morey up top. And I also have a superstar player that I'm trying to learn, like, is it your voice that really has all the control here, or are you acquiescing to James Harden? Or how do I work with Daryl Morey? I would have to have all chips in with Daryl Morey, but there's a lot of
That's
other
his
factors.
Ace. You're trying to coach his ace. Yeah.
It makes you a little bit squirmy, but it gives you a great chance in the Eastern Conference that is open. And how do you turn down a chance to play or coach James Harden and Joel Embiid? So that's number 2. Number 3. Number 2. I'm going to go out west, man. I'm going to go with my guy, James Jones, Matt Ishibia, Justin Ishibia, the brothers that own this team. I've known Justin for a while. I've got a chance to talk to Matt and his relationship with Tom Izzo, with the Michigan State Spartans. I like the culture that they're trying to establish. I like the thought of playing faster through my guy, D-Book, that I've known for a long time, coaching him at the Elite 24 All-American camp, watching him grow. I think him and Kevin Durant, with the pieces they can have around them, I would try to talk to James Jones about what is our plan with DeAndre Ayton. Are we letting him go? Can we go get a guy like a Clint Capella? Like, can we go get a guy like that could be more of a hard screen setter, know your role, play harder? Can we get wings? And what are we doing with CP3? You know, if we're going to waive him, we guarantee him $15 million. That opens up our cap a little bit. What else can we – what are other pieces in the Western Conference that we can play fast and play through D-Book? I think that is really intriguing. And last but not least, number 1. Man, it's hard not to want to coach Giannis. Like, I know what I'm going to get every single day. I know what kind of drive I'm going to get. We just spent a lot of time talking about similar attributes that Jimmy Butler has to the likes of the Kobe Bryants and the Michael Jordans, that maniacal aspect of daily approaching the game with fierce, intense sense of urgency. That is who Giannis is. Questions around that. Look, I think when I hear Drew Holiday say, I mean, I'm not sure I want to play basketball in a couple years. I think that is a huge, eye-opening thing to say about the coaching staff. So a guy like Drew, some other decisions around Brook Lopez, I like the bones of this team in the Eastern Conference that can get me to where I need to be sooner than any other team. So the Milwaukee Bucks would be number 1 for me.
You like the architecture in Milwaukee, right?
I love John Horst.
Even if the furniture looks good in Phoenix, but the architecture in Milwaukee.
And I love John Horst and his pragmatic approach.
Jay, can I represent you?
Oh, yeah, Key. You can rep me.
So the first thing that I would tell you to do is we're gonna take a look at the ownership in the front office. That's the most important thing when looking at all 5 of these job openings. What type of ownership in front office do we have? Then we think about the cap and the players on the roster. Then we start to think about the terms of the deal. How long is the deal? Because if you go into a situation as cute as it is to coach Giannis, what is that ownership like, right? They're quick trigger. Here's a guy who just won a championship who's now on the streets. Just won a championship 2 years ago. He's on the streets because they didn't like the fact that they got bounced, even though a player was hurt and in and out of the lineup. Then when you look at the situation in Detroit, young, up and coming, they're expecting a lot. And if that doesn't work out in a short period of time, they probably going to get rid of you too.
Thanks for watching ESPN on YouTube. For live streaming sports and premium content, subscribe to ESPN+.